So now, folks, all of you have heard, many of you have heard of the Exodus movement. And we have with us tonight a very, very courageous young woman. She is actually a young, fiercely proud Jewish millennial. She was a former campaign staffer for President Trump. That's where she met her husband. She determined to fight back and start a movement against the liberal forces, the progressive, socialist, anti-Semitic forces that are in our country and exist within the power structure of the Democratic Party. And she is leading the exodus of Jews across America to leave the Democratic Party behind. And in order to really realize this dream, she is speaking across the country. She was just on Neil Cavuto, and we're here to help her. We're here. She's not here for us. We're here for her. We need to help her. We need to help make her voice strong. So please, donate whatever you can to the Exodus movement to keep Elizabeth's voice strong as a leader of our new generation, the leader of the millennials. So I want to welcome to you now Elizabeth Pipko. Hear it. Join me in welcoming Elizabeth Pipko.
Wow, that was quite a welcome. Thank you, guys. I'm not the president, please. Jeez. Okay. First of all, thank you so much for having me. The holidays are my favorite time of year, so between Thanksgiving and Hanukkah and Christmas and everything else, genuinely, it's my honor to be here and celebrate our country and our holidays and everything else together, so thank you. Also, thank you for the kosher food. It's the reason my husband accompanied me tonight, so thank you for that. I think with how divisive and disgusting, honestly, people have been lately, I think it's most important for me just to share why I love America as much as I do, why I'm the proudest American Jew, I swear to you, will ever meet in your entire life, and tell you where I came from, because I don't get to share that part of my story enough. My entire family came here from the Soviet Union. I'm a first-generation American. My whole family came here. My parents were pretty young. My mom was 10, and my dad was 20. They came separately. My mom's family faced a lot of anti-Semitism back in Russia. My grandfather was actually a pretty famous artist who wasn't allowed to paint what mattered to him. He wasn't allowed to paint anything to do with Judaism or religion, which was his greatest passion in the world. He very often painted in the dark in the basement at night because he was always being watched. He literally loved Judaism more than anything in the world, and for him to not be able to express himself in that way was extremely difficult for him. My grandmother was a pretty well-known newscaster in Russia who was fired as soon as her boss found out that she was Jewish. My mom was badly beaten very often in school by not only kids but teachers for being a Jew at just 8 and 9 years old. And they came here, literally just for freedom. They came with $90 each in their pockets to live the American dream. My dad had a worse story, actually. My dad's family is from Estonia. His parents, my grandparents, are both pretty well-known lawyers. My grandfather actually was a very well-known lawyer who represented people and worked on very politically sensitive cases. So he was not allowed to leave. So even though they were preparing to escape, they knew for a fact that my grandfather would never get permission to leave because he had such sensitive material, and they would not allow him to come to the United States. So my father, at 20 years old, my grandmother, and my aunt all had to make the extremely difficult decision to leave my grandfather behind, not knowing if they'd ever see him again. It's actually a pretty crazy story. When my dad and my grandmother were at the train station ready to say goodbye forever, they got there, and there was the final train there that day, and they were told that the border was closing and it was the last train and that it was full. And they can give up their visa and turn around and try again. And my grandmother knew that with everything she had done as a lawyer, not only would her life be in danger, but so would my father's, and they would certainly never get out again, let alone possibly never remain alive. So she, as one of the toughest women to ever walk this earth, grabbed my father by the arm and went to the director of the train station. She took a piece of jewelry out of her pocket and handed it to him, looked him straight in the eye and said, "I need 2 tickets on the last train out." My dad thought that they were going to get arrested and go to prison right then and there. But God always knows what he's doing, and he looked over them that day. They got 2 tickets, and that's why I'm here today. A few years later, my dad had actually saved up enough money to travel back to Europe to try to reconnect with my grandfather, who had also saved us money and who had applied to get travel visas multiple times. And after thinking that he had finally gotten one and using all of his resources, it was taken away from him by the government at the last minute. And at 57 years old, thinking that he would never see his son again, he suffered his 3rd heart attack and passed away. So literally, my father gave up his father so that I could be here with all of you right now. I do want to stress that this is hands down the greatest country that God has ever created. It's the greatest country on the planet. Now I know how the president feels. This really is hands down the greatest country on planet Earth, and my family, not just me, but my family did get out. Did get out alive and did get to live their American dream. Each one of them did come with $90 in their pockets. And today my father became a successful lawyer. He's the first Estonian to graduate from 2 Ivy League schools in the United States. My mom is a concert pianist who has sold out arenas across the world, including Carnegie Hall. And my grandfather got to be the artist that he always dreamed of being. He got to actually make the Nobel Peace Prize medal for Elie Wiesel, who eventually wrote the foreword for the book that was written about my grandfather and his life. So we've lived our American dream. Certainly everything has come full circle. As Phil pointed out, I was on Neil Cavuto a few hours ago on Fox, and after I left, a few minutes later, I received an email from someone who told me that they actually studied under my grandmother at NYU, who came here, studied English 24/7, literally to learn the language, and then became a law professor at NYU. And this person studied under my grandmother and is now emailing me after watching me. So to imagine that my grandmother, after risking her life, handing over that bracelet to get 2 tickets on that train, would have known that 30 years later her granddaughter would be on Fox News getting an email like that. All the proof in the world that you need that God exists, first of all. Apart from being the proudest American, I'm also the proudest Jew in the entire world. My family did a lot in Russia to keep our Jewish traditions alive. My grandfather's family specifically risked everything to attend services on the holy days. He never took my grandmother or his mother with him because people were often beaten or arrested outside of the synagogue, but he always went. My family also spent a lot of days starving because they would not eat pork and, break our tradition. And that's why I'm here 30 years later, not letting anyone let me eat pork, by the way, but being the proudest Jew and the hopefully best representative that I can be for our people and the legacy that my grandfather has left me with. Apart from being the proudest American and the proudest Jew, I'm also a pretty big Trump supporter. In 2016, I got the honor of being on our president's campaign. In another act of God, my brother and I were volunteering on the campaign, and because I am insane and always dream way further than I should, I wrote a letter to the data director of the campaign, and I hired an intern and paid him to bring that letter upstairs. And I was hired in 24 hours, so that's pretty cool. I got my brother a job a few weeks later. I think he was the youngest full-time staffer on the campaign as well. There I met my husband, another act of God. And there I got to witness history in the making because of people like you, by the way, so thank you. for me to know right now that after everything that my parents and grandparents went through, I had a teeny tiny piece in the making of the Donald Trump presidency, which has been hands down the greatest presidency for Jewish Americans and for Israel in the history of our country, is the biggest one. And for everybody else. So. Ever since the Trump campaign, I looked for something that I could do to change the world, literally. Our president changes the world every single day. For each one of us, I think he changes a lot, and I think it's actually a lot bigger than we realize. Even those that are sitting at home hating him, deep down are wishing they were him and doing what he was doing. So we all know it's true. So after experiencing that campaign, all I wanted to do was change the world myself. At that point, after 2016, I had a pretty decent modeling career that I was pretty proud of, but I knew that that would be taken away from me the minute that I admitted that I worked for Donald Trump. So I kept that a secret for a few years, and eventually got tired of keeping that a secret in order to take some stupid pictures, and wanted to make my country, my president, my grandparents, and everyone else proud. So I released my story on Fox and Friends earlier this year, and since then I've literally been living the American dream that my parents risked everything for 30 years ago. I've gotten to literally go across the entire country and meet people like all of you and tell them how beyond proud I am to be an American today, because there are so many places that I would not want to be right now. This is the greatest land God has ever created. It's the most magical place on planet Earth, and for those that don't understand it, I genuinely pity them, because there's nothing that makes me happier to be. Knowing that I had small or enough of a platform, I knew I had to do something. With that, I knew I would never model again, that's for sure, which was fine. And I was handed another opportunity by God, which was leading this Now Exodus movement. In the spring of this year, I launched the Exodus movement, which really started out genuinely with a few tweets and an idea. I had no idea that I'd be here today and I'd be doing what I'm doing. But from a few tweets, one from our president, and a few appearances on TV, I went on to form C4 a non-for-profit, and now a super PAC this summer for the Exodus movement, which is a giant honor and one that I never thought I would get to experience. Everyone around me, my parents, my brother, my husband, are the smartest people on the planet. So the fact that the super PAC is in the hands of me is pretty terrifying, honestly. But to be 24 and to be doing the super PAC and be this close, as close as I am to the top, literally, of politics here, to get to ever speak to our president it's genuinely been such a humbling honor, and I can't believe every single day that I get to live this life. I don't know what I did to deserve it. I genuinely have no idea, but the fact that I get to do it is something that I will live on forever being proud of, and something that I'm going to keep fighting for, because every single one of us has an obligation, and that's to fight for something. Because it's very easy to sit down, like all the liberals are doing, or to march once a week with our clothes off, or whatever the hell they're doing now, and avoid going to school or going to work. But that's not what we do. Republicans don't do that. It's our job to fight every single day, like my grandparents fought and my parents fought, and like I fight every morning and every night to deal with the crap that I deal with on social media and on the internet and everywhere else from the liberals, and to make sure that we keep our country strong and great, and the country that everyone around the world is dying to be a part of. I grew up with my dad telling me everything that he went through when he got here. And apart from losing my grandfather, he also was practically homeless by himself at 20 years old. He worked literally day and night to try to afford food. There were days where he told me he would have to decide between taking the subway home, which was $1 at that point, or eating dinner that night, because he couldn't afford to do both. There was, I think, many occasions where this happened, but one specific occasion where he was jumped and mugged in the subway. And he told me that he remembers laying on the ground, being beaten to blood, and holding on to his little briefcase. What the muggers didn't know was that all he had in there was one pair of shoes and a change of clothes, because that's all he had at that point. And he knew that if he gave that up, he would be able to go to school or work the next day. It's literally all he had in his possession at that point. And he fought to keep that in his arms as they beat the crap out of him. And 10 years later, became one of the most successful lawyers in New York, and gave me the passion to be able to be here with all of you and to fight for the courage that he had back then and the courage that many, many Americans gave him so that he can do this. Coming from all of that, although it seems like a gift is also the greatest pressure because I have a legacy behind me that I have to live up to. And being here with all of you and letting you all give me that opportunity to try to live up to that is such a blessing. I'm humbled every single day, genuinely, that people think that I could live up to what my parents came from. They fought through hell to be here. And I get to represent them and the other millions of people who did the same thing. Coming here is the reason that so many people are proud of who we are. So I think if people were to understand everything that we came from, they'd be a lot prouder, which is why I share my message and my family's message every single day. There's a lot of people that I went to school with that now proudly burn American flags regularly that I have to watch, who totally forgot everything that came before us and everything that we hopefully have in front of us, which is why I do what I do and why I'm humbled again to be here with all of you and get to continue speaking and doing what I'm doing and fighting for what I'm doing. The Exodus movement has been such an honor to represent Americans and to represent Jews because I am, again, the proudest Jew, and I know that everything I came from is what makes me who I am. If not for being Jewish, I wouldn't be strong, I wouldn't be tough, I wouldn't believe in anything. It's the reason that I believe in what I believe in. It's the reason that I'm pro-life. It's the reason that I'm pro-Second Amendment. It's the reason that I believe in all of these things. And it genuinely terrifies me when I see young people who turn away from God because they literally forgot everything that we came from and everything that God does for all of us every single day. And I'm hoping to inspire young people and all people to turn back to God. Because, like I like to say, it's Republicans who fear God and Democrats who fear the idea of God. But I want to show them that the idea of God is good. It's very good. The Exodus movement is giving me the strength that I never thought I had. I did a lot before this. I've been a part of a lot of industries, but I've never gotten to fight like I've gotten to fight right now for other people. It was always about me. And to know that I'm doing a tenth of what, or even less than that, of what President Trump is doing and fighting for literally all of you in this room and all of us across the country, that's the most powerful feeling in the entire world, and that's why I started the Exodus movement. We're now one of the only super PACs doing what we do, focused on American Jews across the country, focused on being a liberation movement for so many people that have felt locked up by the left and by the Democratic Party for decades now, who are terrified to leave the left, to stand up to those around them, to stand up to those in their synagogues, in their schools, at work, and be proud to be American and be President Trump supporters. And I'm standing up for each one of them every single day. I plan to take everything that I was lucky to learn on the Trump campaign in 2016 and obviously learn from everyone much more experienced around me and to be a super PAC, not just for 2020, but for way, way longer, hopefully forever, for American Jews. We've done a lot of things that I'm proud of. We have much more in store. And it's an honor, like I said, every day to live out this dream and this campaign for my people. I'm not just living it out for America, I'm living it out for Jews across the world, because let's face it, without America, there's probably going to be an end to Judaism around the world. So to be able to fight for that every single day is the greatest blessing. I know that all of my grandfathers who are no longer here are looking down and probably really proud, and hopefully are in this room somewhere as well. This is the worst part of politics, so bear with me, but the Exodus movement is a super PAC. And without money and without your financial support, we can do absolutely nothing. So if you feel like giving emotional support, I appreciate that as well, because I cry a lot. So if you feel like giving that, that helps too. But any financial support that you can give, we will be incredibly appreciative forever, because genuinely it's the donations that I'm shocked I'm receiving from around the world that keep us going and let me live this dream and fight for everything that I fight for every single day. Standing up for America has been such a gift and such an honor, like I said, and the fact that I get to bring kids into this world one day and tell them about this journey that I've been on for just 11 months now, which feels way longer, has been the highlight, honestly, of my life. To know that my husband literally came into my world because of Donald Trump, and I get to tell that and share that with the world forever, is the craziest, funniest, most humbling story ever. I can promise you all that I will never, ever, ever stop fighting for our country, because it genuinely means more to me than anything in my life. I know without America, I would literally be nothing. I would not exist. I would not be the person I am. I would feel nothing, think nothing, be nothing. America makes me absolutely everything that I am. I cannot wait to raise the proudest American children in the whole world. Hopefully no no pressure, Darren, but I'd like to have them all under a Trump presidency, please. We're going to start with 2, but we're going to try. But yeah, I genuinely want to thank all of you, not just for being in this room tonight, but for being with me every step of the way, for being with our country every step of the way. It's meeting you guys that make me feel like everything my parents and grandparents taught me growing up still exists. With it's hard living in New York City with the terrible friends that I have that don't understand, literally don't understand anything. So it's meeting you guys and talking to you that makes me feel alive again. It makes me feel like everything that I'm fighting for, everything that I believe in, still exists. And I know that all of you have children and grandchildren and cousins and family friends that I know believe in the same thing. And that gives me hope every single day. So thank you to each one of you, honestly. Thank you. Also, thank you for being with me in this room tonight. If you had told me a year ago I'd be giving a speech remotely related to politics, I would have laughed at all of you. So thank you for being here tonight. And on November 3rd, I believe it is, 2020, promise me that each one of you will bring your family and your friends and your kids and your pets and everyone else. That's probably illegal, but and your pets and everyone else, and you will vote. And you will vote for our incredible president and keep America great again. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth Pipko.